Good morning, everyone. We studied about different diseases. This is one question based on that. Any answers? A and B. D. Which of the following statements is not correct? We're looking for the incorrect statement out of these. First one says hepatitis B virus is transmitted much like HIV. How is hepatitis B transmitted? Blood and body fluids. So that is similar to how HIV is transmitted. So the first statement is correct. Second one says hepatitis B, unlike hepatitis C, does not have a vaccine. What this is saying is hepatitis B is not like hepatitis C. Why? Because hepatitis B does not have a vaccine against it. So this should have been the other way around. B का vaccine है, C का नहीं है. So hepatitis B does have a vaccine, but hepatitis C does not have a vaccine, which makes this statement incorrect. So the answer is going to be B. The other two statements are, globally, the number of people infected with hepatitis B and C viruses are several times more than those infected with HIV. So yes, hepatitis is much more infectious. The number of people are involved are also much more. And the last one, some of those infected with hepatitis B and C viruses do not show their symptoms for many years. This is actually correct for many different kind of viral diseases. There can be a virus which can be simply present in the body, but it won't be doing any damage. And this can happen for years. And for diseases like hepatitis, even for HIV, that is the case. When somebody is HIV positive, it means that he has HIV virus in his body. But that necessarily does not mean that he has AIDS. There is a difference between calling somebody HIV positive and having AIDS. It might take 10 years or 20 years also between being HIV positive to actually having AIDS. Because the virus might simply be staying in the body without causing any symptoms. For hepatitis also, that logic works. So the last statement is also correct. Answer would be B. Is this fine? Now we had started talking about immunity, about the immune system. What is immunity? Ability of the body to fight different diseases. Yes. And in that, we spoke about innate immunity and acquired immunity. There is one level of immunity where the protection is non-specific. It is always there, first line of defense. We called that innate immunity. And then we said we had acquired immunity, which starts being formed once an attack has taken place. Okay, so we are going to talk about acquired immunity today. And in acquired immunity, acquired, or the second term is adaptive immunity. There are two mechanisms through which your body provides acquired or adaptive immunity. One is called antibody mediated response, and the second is cell mediated response. So we are going to learn about both these mechanisms, how they work, what is the immune system actually doing. First, we'll talk about some basic concepts. Then we'll write this part. You would have heard about these terms antigen and antibody. They were very popular during the pandemic. Antigen test, antibody tests. So we are going to understand what these terms mean. See, when we have been talking about immunity, we have said that there are some unwanted agents which your body wants to attack, or which your body wants to protect itself against. So that means the body has an ability to identify this. The body can identify what is unwanted and specifically target that. So it doesn't need to attack everything. It needs to attack certain specific things which it considers to be harmful. जैसे कि if I am drinking water, okay, this is also a foreign thing, a thing from outside which is going into my body. But my immune system does not need to attack the water. But if there is a bacteria present in this, a disease causing bacteria present in the water, my body will need to attack that. That is what I need to be protected against. So, the immune system has an inbuilt ability to select what to attack. And it works only when those things come into the body, otherwise it is not activated. The term we use to describe any such thing is antigen. So antigen is anything which will stimulate the immune system. Anything coming from outside which your body thinks can be harmful, that activates the immune system, and then the immune system decides to attack it. So, like in this case, these are the bacteria which are coming into the body. And these bacteria, the disease causing bacteria, they are going to be the antigen for your body. Being an antigen means when they will come into the body, the cells of the immune system, they are going to be activated. When they recognize, when they find out कि अच्छा एक antigen आ गया अंदर, then they start working. Then they react to it. You can see how angry this immune cell is. Okay. Its reaction is going to be in the form of production of specific proteins called antibodies. Immune cells will produce antibody against the antigen which has come. Like you can see these Y-shaped structures, these are the antibodies. This will go and attack the bacteria. And when they attack the bacteria is going to get destroyed. Like this one is saying, I'm hit, and warning the others, कि मैं तो गया, you please go, run away without me. Against every antigen that comes into the body, there is a specific antibody which is produced. So, अगर बैक्टीरिया है तो डिफरेंट एंटीबॉडी होगा, अगर वायरस आया है तो डिफरेंट एंटीबॉडी होगा, कोई और पॉइजनस केमिकल आया, अनदर डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ एंटीबॉडी. एंड विद इन अ ग्रुप ऑल्सो देर इज स्पेसिफिसिटी. जैसे बैक्टीरिया में ट्यूबरकुलोसिस बैक्टीरिया का एंटीबॉडी डिफरेंट होगा, लेप्रेसी बैक्टीरिया का एंटीबॉडी डिफरेंट होगा, कॉलरा बैक्टीरिया का एंटीबॉडी डिफरेंट होगा. This process is a highly specific reaction. It is, think of it as something like lock and key arrangement. A very highly specialized specific reaction जो antigen body में आएगा, body will become stimulated, body will start working, and then it will produce antibodies to destroy the antigen. For every antigen, there is a corresponding antibody whose job is to destroy that antigen. This is one mechanism which acquired adaptive immunity follows in our body. Produces antibodies to destroy the unwanted things. There is one more mechanism which the immune system follows, where there is no production of antibodies or anything, but direct destruction. So this is a cell. Again, this is the cell of the immune system. And they've shown a virus here. So this is the outside foreign unwanted agent which has come into the body. Now what this immune cell tries to do is, it tries to cover this with the help of its cell membrane and ultimately bring it inside its cell membrane. Once it is brought inside, it is going to get destroyed with the help of enzymes present and things available within the cell to break this down. This is going to get destroyed. So in this case, there is direct destruction. This is like natural killing process. And no things like antibodies or anything was involved. So this is the second mechanism which our body has. There is a technical term to describe it, which is called phagocytosis. So phagocytosis is performed by many organisms. Some organisms actually eat food in this way. But yehi mechanism in your body the immune system uses to destroy the unwanted agents. So there are two mechanisms to take care when there is an actual attack which is going to happen. One is through antibodies and second is directly through cells. We are going to see which cells of the immune system are doing these jobs, and then we'll summarize and write. The immune system is associated with the white blood cells. They are the main cells which are responsible for providing immunity to the body. And for acquired adaptive immunity, the main cells are lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are a type of white blood cell, and they are further of two types. एक है B lymphocytes or B cells. The second is T lymphocytes or T cells. Out of these two mechanisms, B cells perform antibody mediated response. That means B lymphocytes are the cells which produce antibodies. And T cells, they provide cell mediated response. That means they are the ones which are going to be using the mechanism of phagocytosis. In terms of their development, in terms of how these cells are formed, there is one slight variation between the two cells. See, all blood cells they are formed in a location in our bones called the bone marrow. Within our long bones means bones of hand and feet. there is a soft material called the bone marrow, and that is where all types of white blood cells, all types of blood cells are formed, white, red, platelets, all of them. B cells and T cells are also formed here, but for B cells, there is complete maturation when they are formed in the bone marrow, but T cells have to undergo a process further. T cells will go to another location called thymus. There is a small gland in your neck called the thymus gland, and after coming out of the bone marrow, T cells go to the thymus gland for their maturation. It is only when they come out from the thymus gland that they are ready to act. So that's how they've got their name also. B cells formed in the bone marrow, T cells also formed in the bone marrow, but B cells are ready to work right when they come out, and T cells need to undergo further maturation in another gland called thymus gland. Okay. Can lysosome perform phagocytosis? Yes, it is the lysosome which will perform phagocytosis. Not exactly performs phagocytosis. Phagocytosis, we say the whole cell is performing, but lysosomes will be providing the enzymes. If you remember the cell structure, they are the ones which have the digestive enzymes, so they will be responsible for breakdown. Is antibody created immediately by the body according to the antigen? We don't use the word immediately because it takes some time. The immune system will take time to recognize the antigen and then form antibodies. They start working immediately as soon as the antigen enters, but it will take some time. So immediate is not the right word here. The process is slow. Okay, we'll write this. We're writing about acquired adaptive immunity, and within that, first, antibody mediated immune response. Antibody mediated immune response. The first term under that you will write is antigen. Antigen it is any agent which triggers an immune response. Any agent which triggers an immune response. Antibody it is the protein produced in response to the antigen. B lymphocytes produce these antibodies and protect the body through antibody mediated immune response. Okay. Now see, antibody will always be a protein, But antigen can be anything. Like all these pathogens, they can be antigen. There can be things other than the pathogen also which can be antigen, like some cells coming from outside, some blood coming from outside, some chemical substances, something like pollen grains. Any of these things which your body thinks is harmful, to which your immune system gets stimulated, that can be an antigen. So antigen is a bigger, broader term. Pathogens being one important category, but और चीजें pathogen को छोड़कर they can also be an antigen. But antibody will always be a protein. What your body is forming, the response which is being created, irrespective of what is coming as an antigen, that will always be a protein. That is fixed. Okay. Why do these blood cells are only made in the bone marrow? Why not elsewhere? Because the raw material needed to prepare blood cells, that is present in the bone marrow. We'll study about a concept called stem cells when we go to genetics. So the stem cells, which are like precursor cells, which will form blood cells, they are present only in the bone marrow. That's why blood cells can be formed only in the bone marrow. What is the difference between neutrophils and lymphocytes? Neutrophils are for innate immunity. The mechanism which neutrophils follow, that is also a natural killing process, something like phagocytosis. But neutrophils में specificity नहीं होती. They don't specifically pick up and attack things. They are for innate immunity, so usually they will just be attacking things without specifically attacking things. एक generic response होगा कि सब चीज़ों को attack करना है. Lymphocytes are more efficient. Lymphocytes pick up, recognize what needs to be attacked and only attack them. So that is a more specific response. So neutrophils are in innate immunity, lymphocytes are for acquired immunity. Write the next one, cell-mediated immune response. Cell-mediated immune response. T lymphocytes are formed in the bone marrow. T lymphocytes are formed in the bone marrow. Like all blood cells. Like all blood cells. And from there, they go to the thymus gland, for maturation. They provide cell-mediated immune response. Cell-mediated immune response through the process of phagocytosis. Through the process of phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is a process by which a cell uses its plasma membrane to capture to capture a large particle and then break it down. So these are the two mechanisms: cell-mediated immune response, antibody-mediated immune response, and they will be working together. We have studied these things in different categorization and different levels, but actually the immune system, the whole thing is going to come together to act. Like the moment an attack has happened or something from outside which is harmful has come, the innate immunity starts working. And along with that, acquired immunity also starts being formed. But that takes a little time to form. So by till that time, innate immunity is trying to do its thing. And then in acquired immunity, B cells bhi kaam kar rahe hain, T cells bhi kaam kar rahe hain. It is actually the whole thing which is coming together to provide protection to the body. जी. See, in any disease, think of this like war. ठीक है, एक आपकी बॉडी है डिफेंडिंग साइड और एक अटैकर है. ठीक है, वो वायरस बैक्टीरिया कुछ भी हो सकता है. नाउ इट विल डिपेंड विच इज स्ट्रोंगर, द पैथोजन और द अटैकर कैन बी स्ट्रोंगर और द बॉडी कैन बी स्ट्रोंगर. अगर बॉडी का रिस्पॉन्स स्ट्रोंगर है तो अटैक का से डैमेज नहीं होगा. बट देर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी इन मैनी डिफरेंट डिजीजेज that in many different conditions that the attack, whatever is it, virus, bacteria or anything else, that is stronger than the body's response. So in that case a person can die, or in that case there can be some serious damage also. That is why we are taking medicines. आप ये सोचो कि अगर ये बॉडी का इतना बढ़िया डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म चल रहा है तो हम हर चीज़ की दवाई क्यों खा रहे हैं? We are taking those medicines or chemical agents to help reduce the impact of the damage, because body is not capable to completely take care of every attack which is taking place. Like typhoid, okay, you know about typhoid. Typhoid is a bacterial disease in which they say that if you don't take any medical intervention, the person will die in 28 days with typhoid. ठीक है, दैट मीन्स बॉडी, ऐसा नहीं है कि बॉडी नहीं रिस्पॉन्ड कर रही है, बॉडी रिस्पॉन्ड करती है. दैट्स हाउ द पर्सन सर्वाइव्स फॉर दोज 28 days. बट that is it, the attacker is stronger. So unless and until you give some more things, some chemicals, some medicines to destroy this attacker, the body cannot completely eliminate everything. ठीक है, not just with COVID, with many diseases this is a possibility. ठीक है. Now we are going to use this concept of your acquired immunity to make vaccines. We are going to understand how vaccination works, and for this we will specifically focus on the role of B cells. How B cells are producing antibodies. Based on that we'll try and understand what happens in case of vaccination. When is a vaccine given to a person? When he is affected from a disease? Before. Vaccine is a preventive healthcare process. So you will give a vaccine to a person so that he does not get a particular disease. So we'll learn how that works. We'll understand a little bit more about B cells and their antibody production mechanism. Suppose there is an antigen which is come into the body to attack. B cells will start working, B cells will get activated once an antigen has come. And once they are activated, they will recognize the structure of the antigen, और इसके structure के हिसाब से एक specific antibody is going to be produced. However, this whole process takes time. Acquired immunity is slower. So the response here is slow and low intensity. Takes a little time to recognize the antigen, then based on that produce antibodies. However, one very amazing thing happens here, that B cells develop immunological memory. Immunological memory means they remember the antigen. And not just the antigen, they also remember how to produce antibodies against this antigen. How this helps a person is that if the same antigen comes to attack again, जो एंटीजन एक बार आया था वो दोबारा जब आया अटैक करने, this time now the moment it enters, this memory is going to be triggered. B cells will remember कि ये आया था पहले, मुझे पता है इसकी पिटाई कैसे करनी है. ठीक है. So before the antigen can do any damage, there will be a large amount of antibodies which will be produced to destroy the antigen. So before the antigen can do any damage, antigen is going to be destroyed. This second case will be of a fast and high intensity response. Now let's put this into an example. We'll talk about chicken pox. You would have heard that most people get chicken pox only once in their lifetime. Have you heard about this concept? Yes? So we'll understand how that works. Okay. Suppose there is a chicken pox virus which has now come to attack the body. The chicken pox virus comes into the body, B cells recognize it, B cells start preparing antibodies against it. But during the time when B cells are recognizing, producing antibodies, the person is suffering from chicken pox. The person has fever, there are rashes on the body, there is a lot of itching, all of that is happening to the person. And within 5-6 days, sufficient antibodies are going to be formed and the chicken pox virus is going to be destroyed. So after 5-6 days, the person will recover from chicken pox. In this process, there is immunological memory which is produced for chicken pox. Or in the more simplified terms, it's said that there is immunity for chicken pox. If I have had chicken pox, I can say I am now immune to chicken pox. So the chicken pox virus, if it comes again now, the second time, same virus. Now, the moment it will enter, the memory is going to be triggered. B cells will remember the antigen and immediately they will prepare a large amount of antibodies which will destroy the antigen before it can cause any problem. So there will be no symptoms, no disease, क्योंकि इससे पहले कि virus जाके disease करे, virus is destroyed by the large amount of antigen, and because of this the person does not get the disease again. This is because of the immunological memory or the immunity which is gained against this particular pathogen. Now the next question is, this does not happen in case of all diseases. Yes. Why it does not happen in case of all diseases is because immunological memory will exist for different time periods in different pathogens. जैसे चिकन पॉक्स वायरस के लिए ये लाइफ टाइम इम्यूनिटी है. There can be another pathogen for which this immunity might stay for say 5 years. So that means after 5 years you can have the disease again. Then it is like a new antigen again. There can be other cases where this immunity can be very short duration. Like, we have a lot of diseases which people keep having every time there is, say, monsoon season. ठीक है? So monsoon season की जो diseases हैं या vector borne diseases हैं, malaria, dengue, like that, people keep getting them again and again. That means for these diseases, the protection is not long term. The protection is not even 1 year, less than 1 year. So there is no immunity which is building against these diseases. There's no immunological memory which is building, it must be building, but say a few months, say 10 months or something like that. That's why people keep getting them again and again. Now, if there is a particular disease for which you have sufficient immunity or sufficient immunological memory prepared, we can use this idea to make a vaccine. We have understood this, that जब तक ये memory होगी तब तक disease नहीं हो सकती, because the job of memory is to provide a very high intensity immune response which will protect the person. So for all those diseases where there is sufficient memory produced, they can be ideally used to make a vaccine. If we can find a way to create this memory, we can protect the person from that disease. Now, how do we create this memory? This memory will be created in this process only. Memory create होगी जब antigen आएगा, B cells उसको attack करेंगे, and that's how they will remember the response, and that's how memory is going to be created. The only thing to change in this process is that we don't want to get the disease. जैसे in this case, जब B cells memory बना रहे थे during that time, or when they were trying to produce antibodies, the person was suffering from chickenpox. उसको fever था, उसको rashes थे, सब कुछ था. Now that cannot be done with a vaccine, right? How many of you have not had chickenpox till now? Okay, so a very large number, right, of people have not had chickenpox till now. Suppose I had decided कि मैं सबको vaccinate करूँगी with chickenpox virus. So the moment somebody is born, I will give chickenpox virus to them. Why? Because I want to create immunological memory. With that, what will happen is everyone will have chickenpox. तो जो बचे हुए हैं वो भी नहीं बचेंगे. ठीक है? That cannot be the objective of vaccination. Vaccination में we have to find a way in which we develop the memory but without the disease. So we will have to slightly change the form in which we give the antigen so that there is no disease. Remember this thing for vaccination. You have two objectives in vaccination. One, that there should not be the disease. Think of debilitating diseases. Think of diseases like polio, right? सारे देश को 2 बूंद जिंदगी का पिलाया, ठीक है, and the whole country is limping because that's what happens in polio. You have a leg deformity. तो वो नहीं हो सकता. Second thing is you create sufficient protection, sufficient immunity against the disease by whatever method you are delivering it. Okay. So we'll learn how we are going to do that. We'll first write a little bit about this, and then we'll go to how we are actually going to deliver that vaccine. Why we see it that whenever antigen comes, then it comes only to harm a body? This is not right. See, antigen, हम उसी चीज को बोल रहे हैं जो harmful हो सकती है. ये terminology उसी चीज के लिए है, antigen, which will stimulate the immune system. अगर कोई चीज immune system को stimulate नहीं कर रही है, we don't call it an antigen. ये term हमने reserve किया है उन चीजों के लिए which will need an immune response. Okay. Otherwise, you don't call them antigens. And there are a lot of things which come in contact with your body, your food, your clothes, your creams, a lot of those things. None of these things your body is attacking. Okay. सो जो हार्मफुल है या जिसको इम्यून रिस्पॉन्स चाहिए उसी को एंटीजन बोलना है. यस, द इम्यून सिस्टम, जो ये एक्वायर्ड इम्यूनिटी का प्रोसेस है, दिस वर्क्स ओनली व्हेन नीडेड. Okay, you can say that we need harmful bacteria to maintain our immune system, right? See, that is why there's this concept, especially during the pandemic, there was this realization that Western countries may people were suffering more with COVID because they do not have a lot of exposure to different kinds of pathogens or antigens. So they were very protected, their environment was clean. We are not that privileged, right? So we had a better exposure to different kinds of pathogens. So हमारे immune system को आदत थी काम करने की, उनके नहीं थी. ठीक है, so this is definitely one concept, but otherwise also you have to think about this thing कि ये सब चीजें हैं बॉडी में, ठीक है, ये मैकेनिज्म इंटैक्ट है, but why does it need to keep producing antibodies or start attacking anything जब कुछ है ही नहीं तो करेगा क्या. ठीक है, जैसे मैंने आर्मी का एग्जाम्पल दिया था. ठीक है, अब आर्मी को क्या जरूरत है टैंक लेकर खड़े होने की हमेशा, राइट? या टैंक लोड करके मिसाइल एक्टिवेट एंगल पे लगा के खड़े होने की क्या जरूरत है जब कोई अटैक नहीं हो रहा है. इट्स लाइक दैट. ठीक है. Can immunological memory malfunction in any case? Yes. See, again, for different diseases, we say that there is a variation of how immunological memory will be there or how long that duration will be there, right? But within that also there can be variations from one person to the other depending on what is the state of his immune system, how healthy he is or how unhealthy he is. Uske hisab se bhi memory or immune responses they can vary. ठीक है. What is the mechanism of medicine on our body? Does that also simulate our immune response? Medicines जो हम खा रहे हैं, the example which I gave you, that has nothing to do with the immune system. We studied about antibiotics. Antibiotics are medicines which you give to kill bacteria. They go into your body, they have nothing to do with any part of your body. Immune system से लेके किसी system से उनका कोई लेना देना नहीं. वो जाएंगे, ढूंढेंगे बैक्टीरिया कहाँ है और बैक्टीरिया पे एक्ट करेंगे. That's their job. Hmm. So, COVID vaccination and reinfection with COVID, that's what she's asking. The very simple idea you have to remember is कि disease जो है, कोई भी disease, उसका जो natural mechanism है, vaccine वही copy कर सकती है. For COVID, when people were getting infected by COVID, what was happening was that they would be protected for a few months. जैसे किसी को कोविड हो गया तो उसको बोलते थे अभी 2-3 महीने बढ़िया तुम घूमो, ठीक है, 2-3 महीने तो नहीं होगा कोविड, राइट? यू माइट रिकॉल दिस आइडिया. बट आफ्टर दैट there were chances of being reinfected. I'm talking about the situation where there was no vaccine before that. ठीक है? That means, or that should give you an idea that memory for COVID is only for a few months. तभी जब naturally people are being infected, they are protected only for a few months and then they are getting reinfected. So vaccine natural mechanism ही copy कर सकती है. Vaccine कुछ अलग से नया नहीं करेगी. So vaccine is copying this natural mechanism of the body which is happening when natural infection is there. So अगर natural infection में lifelong protection नहीं है तो vaccine कैसे कर देगा? That was the logic of people getting reinfected, and that is also the logic of giving booster doses in COVID. पहले एक डोज, फिर 2 डोज, फिर 3, फिर चौथा booster dose, right? Till the disease got eliminated. The idea of taking those doses was कि अगर उसकी 2-3 महीने की protection है तो 2-3 महीने बाद फिर से vaccine ले लो, ठीक है? Because then again it becomes like a new antigen, ठीक है? Does B cell, T cell, and RBC have same characteristic as animal cell or some additional organelle that make their functions different? See, the basic function, the basic setup of all cells is same. जो हमने animal cell का structure पढ़ा था. The function variation comes because of some specific proteins which they produce, something to do with the genetic materials functioning, but apparatus सारा बिल्कुल same रहेगा. ठीक है जी. वैक्सीन का रेजिस्टेंस से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. डोंट कंफ्यूज दीज कॉन्सेप्ट्स. रेजिस्टेंस वाज हैपनिंग टू अ मेडिसिन. ठीक है, आप एक दवाई खाते हो, आप एक एंटीबायोटिक खाते हो, आप एक एंटी फंगल मेडिसिन खाते हो, द पैथोजन माइट नॉट वर्क टू दैट, बट दैट हैज नथिंग टू डू विद द वैक्सीन प्रोसेस, क्योंकि ये डिफरेंट मैकेनिज्म है. दिस इज बॉडीज ओन मैकेनिज्म. इसकी रेजिस्टेंस नहीं हो सकती. क्यों नहीं हो सकती? क्योंकि बी सेल्स हर बार स्ट्रक्चर स्टडी करके उसके हिसाब से एंटीबॉडी बना सकते हैं. So even if the pathogen changes or anything, it will not make any difference to that idea. Resistance इस concept से नहीं हो सकती. वो सिर्फ दवाई की जो chemical आप बाहर से तो उसकी resistant हो सकती है pathogen को. ठीक है? Will the vaccines work if the pathogen changes? देखो, इसमें अब it is important to understand that which part of the pathogen is acting as an antigen. Like out of the whole setup, एक pathogen है, उसके structure में से 10 proteins हैं. ठीक है? And B cells now don't really need to learn the whole structure. B cells are very smart. वो उसको recognize करने के लिए एक या दो चीजें याद कर लेते हैं out of the structure. So suppose out of these there is one protein, say protein A, which B cells have recognized. जो B cells ने याद कर लिए, जो memory में store कर लिए. Just that one protein. Now if this pathogen changes, अब ये चेंज हो गया फॉर्म में, इसकी प्रोटीन्स चेंज हो गई हैं. से लेट्स से 5 प्रोटीन्स चेंज, 5 रिमेन द सेम. ओके, आउट ऑफ दीज 5 ए कहाँ पे प्लेस्ड है, दैट विल डिसाइड इफ द वेरिएंट और द न्यू स्पीशीज और द न्यू वेराइटी उस पर वैक्सीन काम करेगी या नहीं. अगर एंटीजन जो बी सेल ने याद किया है वो चेंज हो गया तो नहीं काम करेगी. देन इट विल बी लाइक अ न्यू एंटीजन कमिंग इन. If this remains the same, then it will work. It will depend on how mutation or how change has happened and which part has changed. Please explain why immunity is not built in every disease. See, this depends on the structure and the attack of the pathogen. It's not that immunity is not built in every disease. It is built, but duration variable हो सकता है depending on the pathogen. किसी में कुछ few months हो सकते हैं, किसी में few years हो सकते हैं, किसी में lifelong हो सकते हैं. Okay. Can you please tell us about cervical cancer? No. Please read it in your current affairs. आपने लिखा है news में है, तो उसमें ऐसा कुछ specific नहीं है. It's happening usually because of the attack of a virus. There is a virus which keeps attacking the cervix again and again, and multiple infections से cells damage हो जाते हैं, which can lead to cancer. Okay. Up to now, I've heard of edible medicines do not affect on the targeted place. Does it affect on antibodies in any sense? No. Medicine का antibody से कोई लेना देना नहीं है. Okay. Please write down. The heading is going to be vaccination. It is a process. It is a process where a person is made immune. A person is made immune or resistant to infections or resistant to infections by stimulating the body's own immune system. By stimulating the body's own immune system. When the body encounters an antigen for the first time, a slow and low intensity production of antibodies is observed. The B lymphocytes, however, remain sensitized and immunological memory is created. On subsequent attacks by the same antigen, this memory is triggered and a fast and high intensity बोर्ड पे भी लिखा हुआ है, immune response is there to destroy the antigen. This provides protection from the disease. Now we are going to see how we are actually going to deliver this. How we are going to send the antigen so that this whole process works. And we will do that through understanding what are the types of vaccines. The first type is live attenuated vaccine. Live attenuated means live means alive, attenuated means weakened. So we will deliver the antigen in a form that it will be weak. Like, let me give you the example of polio. आपको पोलियो का वैक्सीन बनाना है. Now you take polio virus and you give it to the person. But this virus is going to be weakened. The virus is going to be weak, but even that weak virus, B cells can recognize. They will get stimulated, they will produce memory, but virus was weak, so virus couldn't cause the disease. Both our objectives are going to be fulfilled. We'll have memory against the disease, against the pathogen, and we will not have any disease because we have weakened the pathogen. Please write for live attenuated. The pathogen is alive. The pathogen is alive. But is weakened. But is weakened so that it does not cause the disease. It does not cause the disease, but retains its capacity to grow. Retains its capacity to grow. And we have examples here. So one is your oral polio, the polio drops which are there. They are a live attenuated vaccine. And BCG is for tuberculosis. These are the earliest vaccines which are given when a baby is born. They are live attenuated type of vaccines. Then the next type is inactivated killed. Weak. Attenuated means weak. कॉन्सेप्ट यही है कि वीकेंड वायरस दोगे आप. आपने वायरस को वीक करके दिया तो बी सेल्स उसको पहचान तो लेंगे, बी सेल्स स्टिमुलेट हो जाएंगे, मेमोरी बना देंगे बिकॉज दैट वायरस हैज कम इनटू द बॉडी, बट बिकॉज द वायरस वाज वीक it is not going to cause the disease. The second scenario is if we kill this pathogen now. If we kill it, if it is inactivated and we just introduce that so-called dead body in our vaccine. Now this dead pathogen, it goes into the body through a vaccine, and what is observed is that B cells can still recognize some parts of its structure. The body is there. So उसके structure पे जो proteins हैं, polysaccharides हैं, lipids हैं, fats हैं, जो भी चीज़ें हैं, B cells are able to recognize them and produce immunological memory against them. But in this case, because the pathogen was dead, it cannot cause the disease. So disease भी नहीं होगी, memory भी बन जाएगी, both our objectives will be fulfilled. Please write inactivated killed. Inactivated killed. The pathogen is killed. The pathogen is killed, but certain parts of its structure are still able to create an immune response. Are still able to create an immune response. An example of this can be, one, there is an injectable type of polio vaccine जो इंजेक्शन से देते हैं. That is an inactivated killed vaccine. And out of your COVID-19 vaccine, you have Covaxin, it is the indigenous vaccine, made in India vaccine. It was also an inactivated killed vaccine. See, for different types of vaccines, you have to understand that we cannot really compare these different methods because all pathogens will not work in all methods. जैसे for example, suppose there is a pathogen जिसको कितना भी weak करो वो फिर भी कुछ disease cause करेगा ही करेगा. So such a pathogen will be unsuitable for live attenuated form. You have to give it in inactivated form. There can be another pathogen which B cells don't recognize if it is not alive. Dead form में B cells recognize ही नहीं कर पाते. So then that becomes unfit for the inactivated killed method. For all pathogens, their mechanisms of how they work, how memory is created, that whole thing is different. So these methods will not work for every pathogen. So you cannot really compare them, or you cannot really say ki, okay, if this method is there, why we need the second method, or which is better, like that. Because different pathogens work in different ways, in different delivery systems. So we have all these different types of vaccines. The next type, yeah. That's why the word inactivated is used. ठीक है. अगर सिर्फ नॉर्मल पैथोजेंस की बात होती तो हम सिर्फ किल्ड भी बोल सकते थे. बट वायरस, यू नो दैट वायरस is not live, dead or anything, right? Host मिलते activate हो जाएगा. That's what she's saying. So उसको आपको कुछ special treatment देना होगा कि वो activate ना हो. That's what you are doing in the lab. You are inactivating it कि वो अंदर जाके भी activate नहीं होगा. That's the property you're going to take away from the virus. ठीक है? Okay. Next is subunit vaccine. Once we understood that B cells recognize certain paths, so there was a vaccine which would now be delivering only certain paths. You study the pathogen and you find out that B cells are recognizing which part of this pathogen. Are they recognizing protein? Are they recognizing polysaccharides? Are they recognizing the fats? Whichever component B cells are recognizing, you just pick out that component and give it as the vaccine. So now this specific antigen goes into the body. B cells, suppose, are recognizing only the protein, like this example I give you. तो आप सिर्फ protein दे दो. वो protein जाएगा, B cells will be sufficiently stimulated, they'll create memory for that particular pathogen. At the same time, because it is only the protein and not the whole organism, there will be no disease. Disease cause करने के लिए you need the whole organism. Okay, so no disease, and at the same time immunological memory is going to be created. Please write subunit vaccine. Subunit vaccine. It uses specific parts. It uses specific parts of a pathogen. Specific parts of a pathogen which can act as an antigen, which can act as an antigen to create an immune response. To create an immune response, like proteins or polysaccharides. Like proteins or polysaccharides. An example would be whooping cough vaccine. Whooping cough vaccine. इसी में subunit में एक variation है और so you can write it within subunit or a separate category. It is a subunit vaccine only, but this vaccine called the conjugate vaccine has two antigens. You study the structure of the pathogen and you find that there can be more than one of its components which are stimulating the B cells. And just to have a better chance of an immune response, you give both the components. जैसे आपने protein भी दिया, साथ में polysaccharide भी दे दिया. Just to ensure that a proper immune response takes place. This is also a subunit vaccine using only specific parts, but यहाँ पे दो parts use होते हैं. Please write conjugate vaccine. Conjugate vaccine. It uses two specific parts. It uses two specific parts of the pathogen together, which can act as an antigen, to stimulate an immune response. Like a protein and a polysaccharide together. Like a protein and a polysaccharide together. An example of this can be a pneumococcal conjugate vaccine. There is one more category of vaccines which are nucleic acid vaccines, like your DNA, RNA vaccine. So we are going to study these once we've studied genetics. Once we go into genetics and we talk about what is DNA, what is RNA, how it works, then we will do this last category of vaccine. But if you want to mention, you can mention it as the last type. It will still be a subunit vaccine. ठीक है, बट अभी दो स्पेसिफिक पार्ट्स वाली ही चल रही है कॉन्जुगेट जो वैक्सीन है, बट इससे ज्यादा भी अगर पार्ट्स की कभी बनेगी वो भी सब यूनिट वैक्सीन ही होगी. जहां पे सिर्फ पार्ट्स यूज हो रहे हैं, इट इज गोइंग टू बी अ सब यूनिट वैक्सीन. Recently, side effects of Covishield side effects are related to low responding immune system or any other reason. Okay. See, Covishield we will study again when we go to genetics, but the concept which is there, see, you are adding something to the body. There is a possibility that some adverse reaction, some side effect, what you want call, that can also happen. Even everything we take, that might have some slight implication. But again, the role of testing is this, that they have to make sure that some severe complication, some severe side effect is not there. With Covishield, what is reported and what the company has now accepted is that in a very rarest to the rare case, there is a possibility of some abnormal clotting taking place in the body. And because of that abnormal clotting of blood, people can die. However, it does not have anything to do with how the vaccines worked or the basic mechanism of vaccine activation. So, ye idea, antigen coming, immune memory being created, all of that is fine. That's just an auxiliary effect, or that's just a side effect which has happened. Again, in not everyone, in a very rarest of the rare case. But because of the sheer sense of how big this impact is, that people could lose their lives, because of that it's in that wider sense of the news. But vaccine को जैसे काम करना था, its intentional use, that happened fine. But कुछ साथ में और abnormal हो गया in some very rare cases. That's what the whole controversy is about. Doesn't weak pathogen give when in the vaccine make variation in the immune system as it encounters strong pathogens during particular disease? See, strong and weak pathogen का concept आपको understand ये करना है कि B cells, their recognition potential is not dependent on weak or being weak or strong. B cells only need memory. Okay, they don't develop intensity. They will इंटेंसिटी वो खुद ही डिसाइड करेंगे, खुद ही रिस्पॉन्ड करेंगे इंटेंसिटी जो उन्होंने देनी है. उनको सिर्फ याद करने के लिए एक स्टिमुलस चाहिए. So that remembering the pathogen and creating memory for it, for that a weak, a strong pathogen will work equally. It's just like for B cells, it's like looking at an image. Once they look at that image, they will remember it. Response in subsequent infections is going to be their own response. And they are going to respond with the same vigor which they would have done if it was a strong pathogen or if it was a weak pathogen. Intensity will not make a difference here. Only what B cells are storing as a part of their information is recognizing that particular antigen and learning how to produce antibodies against it. That is it. उसका वीक या स्ट्रॉन्ग पे कोई वेरिएशन नहीं होगा. ऐसा नहीं है कि पहले वीक को रिकॉग्नाइज किया था तो अब स्ट्रॉन्ग आ गया तो नहीं काम करेगा. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. They once they remember something, once something is in their memory, it is going to be the response which they give in subsequent attacks. Even in that response, the response is going to be the same. The the coming of the weak pathogen only makes a difference कि pathogen disease नहीं cause करेगा. Immune system अपना काम वैसे ही कर रहा है जैसे वो normally करता है. जी. See, again, there can be different methods of giving a vaccine. Injection is a convenient method, and it can you can choose how you want to give it. You want to give it in the blood directly, or you want to give it in the muscle. But when you give it through oral method, right, if that is your context, there is a lot of wastage in that. जो ओरल जो भी चीज मुंह से जाएगी वो डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम में जाती है, उसका ब्रेक डाउन होता है, एंड अ लॉट ऑफ दैट इज wasted. Like the medicines which we eat, like the you're eating any medicine, more than 70% of that is going to go waste. So vaccine may you want a little bit more precision, so injection is a better method to do that. Can you please give us the reference books for the subject? Where were you in the first class? No reference books, NCRTs, current affairs, class, that's it. We did RT-PCR for COVID testing. For there, we could have used it as a subunit vaccine. Okay, so Ayush, please ask me about RT-PCR when we go into genetics. I cannot explain you RT-PCR and why we cannot use it for subunit vaccine. See, किसी भी पैटर्न में किसी भी कैटेगरी में कौन सा वैक्सीन नहीं बन रहा है, वो नहीं बन रहा है बिकॉज वो उस पैटर्न में पैथोजन नहीं काम कर रहा है, नहीं स्टिमुलेट कर रहा है. ओके, RT-PCR method is supposed to do with genetic material, और COVID-19 में genetic vaccines या nucleic acid vaccines तो हैं ही हैं. Why do timelines differ for immunological memory for separate diseases? See, I think एक basic question आप सोचो, हर disease अलग type की है. In every disease different symptoms are happening, different severity is there. कोई disease ज़्यादा serious है, कोई कम serious है, किसी में एक organ impact हो रहा है, किसी में दूसरा organ impact हो रहा है, body's response is different, duration is different, so memory will also be different. Okay. If vaccine stimulates immune system, then can we say vaccine is also an antigen? Vaccine is an antigen. Can we say का क्या मतलब है? वैक्सीन में हम एंटीजन ही दे रहे हैं. The process of giving a vaccine is giving an antigen to the person in different forms. That is what we are doing. You've really figured it out. Good. Okay. Yeah. So एक question है, UPSC ने इस पे पूछा है, very conceptual question. Once we solve this, you'll get a little bit more clarity into this concept. Just try and solve this. इस पे एक मेंस का क्वेश्चन भी है, but we'll do that once we have done the nucleic acid vaccines. Then I'll give you that question. In what condition body stops forming antibodies? So if the immune system is weak, if the B cells are not working, then it can happen, but it's very rare. A, B, D. C नहीं, C नहीं. बाकी सब ठीक है, not C. Widespread resistance of malarial parasites to drugs like chloroquine has prompted attempts to develop a malarial vaccine to combat malaria. Why is it difficult to develop an effective malarial vaccine? Now understand the question. They are saying कि malaria के लिए एक दवाई है, chloroquine, but resistance is developing against this medicine. This medicine is not working, so because we don't have a very good treatment option, we are trying to create a preventive option through developing a vaccine. Now they are saying it is difficult to develop the vaccine, and you have to tell us why it is difficult to make the malaria vaccine. You have 4 statements here. All these 4 can be factually correct. In this question, this is a very important point, that we are not looking for a statement which is correct. ये चारों correct हो सकती हैं. You have to find out why is it difficult to make the vaccine. You have to find the most appropriate explanation for that. So first we'll go through the statements and we'll see which are factually correct, and then we'll put it with the question. First one is malaria is caused by several species of Plasmodium. Is this factually correct? Yes. We mentioned 2 different species also which are more prevalent, but there can be more also. So this is factually correct. Second statement says man does not develop immunity to malaria during natural infection. This means, this statement, what it is trying to say is that when people are naturally infected with malaria, or when people have malaria, they don't have immunity. Here means lifelong protection or lifelong memory. So people are not protected from future infections of malaria. That is what it says by meaning that does not create immunity here. Okay, so yes, people can have malaria again and again. So this is definitely correct. The third option is vaccines can be developed only against bacteria. This, of course, is factually incorrect. Man is only the intermediate host and not the definitive host. So when we studied about Plasmodium, we said that Plasmodium can have asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction both. The organism where it has asexual reproduction is called the intermediate host, and in human beings, in their red blood cells, Plasmodium reproduces asexually. So this statement that man is only the intermediate host, this is also factually correct. Okay. So there are three options now. Three of them are factually correct. Okay. So practically इस question के तीन ही option है. Third one is obviously going to be eliminated by everyone. Now the last statement, I'll start with this. It is trying to explain कि reproductive system कैसे काम कर रहा है Plasmodium का. But this does not really impact how B cells will respond. B cells जो हैं, once something has come to attack, it is an antigen for the body, B cells will be responding to it. अब B cells को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि वो ये सेक्सुअली रिप्रोड्यूस करके आया है, सेक्सुअली रिप्रोड्यूस करके आया है, मैन में उसने रिप्रोड्यूस किया या मॉस्किटो में किया. दिस इज immaterial for B cells response. So this, even if it is factually correct, it has nothing to do with the actual vaccine making process. Okay, so this cannot be why it is difficult to make a vaccine. So this option also you have to eliminate. Now out of the first two, if your answer was between A and B, you're at a very good place. In terms of concepts, you've reached very close and you still have a 50% chance of getting the right answer. So let's see. First statement jo hai, it is saying that Plasmodium is made up of several species. Malaria is caused by several species of Plasmodium. Now this definitely can be a problem because different species ke liye their antigens might be different. But what we can do is, like we studied about hepatitis, if you remember. So hepatitis may be multiple varieties hain, and what we did was we made vaccines for all of them. And we can do this for many diseases. We are doing this for many diseases. Just in case of polio, the current vaccine is a pentavalent vaccine. It covers 5 species of polio. So in the case of malaria also, if there are different species, we can make vaccines against all of that. If we have a mechanism जिससे एक effective vaccine बन सकती है, then we can make a vaccine for all those different species. So this might not be a problem as much as the second part. If memory or if natural immunity against malaria is not long term, then that is what we are trying to replicate. So we will not be able to make a very good vaccine. We have made vaccines for malaria. Recently also there's this vaccine R21. It was made, but they are not very effective. They work, but because natural protection is not very high, तो वो बहुत ज़्यादा long term protection नहीं दे पाएंगी. That is what is the big problem with making vaccines for malaria. Vaccine making process में we are replicating what is happening in the in case of a natural infection. We are exactly copying that. So अगर natural case में immunity नहीं बन रही है अच्छे से, अगर people are getting malaria every year, that means through a vaccine also we will not be able to get some very good results. We will not be able to get long-term protection. So the answer is going to be B. ठीक है? B. There is one last part which is left for immunity, just one concept, which is active and passive immunity. So we are going to use the idea of antigen antibody interaction, and based on that we are dividing adaptive or required immunity into two parts. Till now, whatever you have studied, that is active immunity. Active immunity means कि बॉडी के जो बी सेल्स हैं वो खुद एंटीबॉडीज बनाते हैं अगेंस्ट एनी एंटीजन विच कम्स फ्रॉम आउटसाइड. The second situation is called passive immunity, where we can give antibodies from outside. How that will work, we'll talk about that. We'll see examples in both the cases. Please write first active immunity. Active immunity. It is the immune response. It is the immune response where antibodies against a particular antigen, antibodies against a particular antigen are produced by the immune system of the person. Are produced by the immune system of the person. In this, there are two situations. One is the natural situation, which is the case of any infection. Any infectious agent, anything, any antigen comes into the body, B cells are stimulated, they produce antibodies. This is the basic concept which we have learned. तो बैक्टीरिया आएगा, बैक्टीरिया का एंटीबॉडी बन जाएगा, वायरस आएगा, वायरस का एंटीबॉडी बन जाएगा. This is body's natural active adaptive immunity. The second case which we have learnt of the vaccine, that is when we can do this artificially. So vaccination में artificial क्या है कि आप एंटीजन दे रहे हो खुद से, बाहर से. अगर एंटीजन खुद आ जाए अटैक करने, it becomes natural active. If the antigen is given through a vaccine, it becomes artificial active. Why it is still active is because आप सिर्फ एंटीजन दे रहे हो, antibodies still your body is going to produce. So because antibody your body is producing, it is active immunity. Because antigen you are giving on your own from outside, it is artificial active immunity. अगर infection खुद से हो जाए, then it becomes natural active immunity. Write down passive immunity. Passive immunity. It is the immune response. It is the immune response where antibodies against a particular antigen are administered from outside are administered from outside the body of the person. From outside the body of the person. How this happens is, there is one natural example here, which is mother's milk. When a baby is born, the baby's immune system is not able to produce all the antibodies. But the mother's immune system is fully developed. The mother can produce antibodies, and these antibodies can go into the milk, and when the baby feeds on this milk, the baby will have access to antibodies, which can be used to fight different antigens. But baby antibody nahi bana raha hai. Antibody is being made by the mother. Baby is only using those antibodies which he is receiving from the milk. So baby ke liye this is passive form of immunity. If antibodies are not made in the body of the person, it is passive. मदर ने एंटीबॉडी बनाई, मदर के लिए एक्टिव इम्यूनिटी. बेबी ने मदर का एंटीबॉडी यूज किया, बेबी के लिए पैसिव इम्यूनिटी. This is why there is this importance of consumption of mother's milk. Because if instead of this, the baby was using cow's milk, he will have access to cow's antibodies, which the cow has prepared for cow diseases. Okay, not very useful for the baby. This giving of antibodies can be done artificially also. And examples of that, one is monoclonal antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies are antibodies which are made in the lab. So जिस भी disease के लिए antibody चाहिए, they can be made in the lab and they can be used. This recently got approval in case of Nipah virus infection which was there. So UK say first time for Nipah this treatment was suggested. Now why you need antibodies to come from outside is because again that idea that sometimes the enemy might be stronger than your body. With Nipah virus what was happening was mortality rate was more than 40%. That if somebody has Nipah virus infection, there is a 40% chance that the person will die. So that means the virus is attacking very fast and the B cells response, जो active immunity चल रहा है, that is slow. So what is done is a lot of these antibodies they're prepared in the lab in access and then they are simply delivered to the person. These antibodies will go in the body and they will destroy the antigen. Like in this case, Nipah virus. Antigen destroy ho jayega, person will recover from the disease. This is just an additional help which you are giving to the immune system. So this becomes passive artificial immunity. This can be done through another process called plasma therapy. You would have heard about plasma therapy. So in plasma therapy, what happens is, like in COVID, this was very popular. So what was happening was, suppose there's a person who has recovered from COVID. Okay, how a person recovered from COVID is that his body made antibodies against the COVID-19 virus, and those antibodies destroyed the virus, so the person no longer has COVID. But there is another person, say his immune system is not working that well, or he has a very severe infection, or there's some other problem, he's not able to recover from the disease. So what can be done is, antibodies whenever they are released in the body, whenever they are produced in the body, they are in the plasma of blood. Blood का जो liquid part है, उसको plasma बोलते हैं. So this plasma contains antibodies. So recovered person का plasma लेके, you give it to the person who is still sick. And this plasma contains antibodies against that particular disease, जैसे COVID-19. So The antibodies will destroy the antigen. The person will be able to recover from the disease. But for this person, these antibodies were not prepared by his body. These were prepared by somebody else, the person who recovered. So, for the person in whose body these antibodies are working, it is passive form of immunity. And क्योंकि ये artificially हो रहा है, this requires medical intervention. Plasma from one person cannot go into the other person automatically. So, this is passive artificial acquired immunity. ठीक है, तो अगर बॉडी एंटीबॉडीज बनाए एक्टिव, अगर एंटीबॉडी बाहर से आए पैसिव. ठीक है, if B is the option, अच्छा, then there are many diseases to which individual does not develop instant immunity, then this option should be correct in any disease. हाँ, जिस भी डिजीज में नेचुरल इम्यूनिटी नहीं बनती है, that is not suitable for vaccine. Right? That's why we don't have vaccines for all diseases. जिसमें अच्छे से memory बनेगी, उसी में vaccine will work well. Can chickenpox happen twice? Yes, chickenpox can happen twice because it will depend. Like in certain cases, there might be a problem कि immunological memory did not get formed in a child because maybe his immunity was very low at that time. Maybe he was suffering from malnourishment or some other problem. Or another situation can be that this is now a new type of chickenpox virus. The chickenpox virus has changed formed. It has become a new variant which is different from the original one. So in that case also chickenpox can happen again. Why B cells only generate antibodies and not T cells? T cells have their own mechanism by which how they work. See, T cells are also stimulated in acquired adaptive immunity. T cells में भी memory बनती है. It's just that this process is a little simpler to understand with the antibody-antigen interaction, but they are also doing the same things. Acquired immunity की property है creation of memory. Stimulation and creation of immunological memory. So B cells are working, T cells are also working similarly, but it's just that their mechanism is different. Otherwise काम same ही करना है उनको. Does the plasma of different not cause any problem to a sick person because of different blood groups? We'll do a matching. Blood groups, match cells, कोई भी ऐसी incompatibility we make sure is not there. That's how transfer is there. The whole blood of one person can also be given to another person, right? I'm sure you know that. Blood transfusion. We'll learn about that also. So we'll ensure कि कोई adverse reaction ना हो. We'll match and give the plasma or the blood whenever that is being done. When the body is already taking time to form antibodies against antigen, still using vaccine in the form of antigen, how will it form antibodies fast? When the body is already taking time to form antibodies against antigen, okay, still using. See, आप जब वैक्सीन दे दोगे, बॉडी का जो ये स्लो फास्ट वाला प्रोसेस है वो फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर से रिलेटेड है. द फर्स्ट टाइम इट इज स्लो, व्हेन इट हैपेंस फॉर द सेकेंड टाइम देन इट विल बी फास्ट. सो वैक्सीन इज बेसिकली द फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर ऑफ एन एंटीजन. सो फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर खुद से हो उससे पहले आप वैक्सीन से दे देते हो फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर, सो दैट when the actual attack takes place, it is the secondary response and that is fast and high intensity. Okay. We'll take a break here, then we'll continue with the next topic. Okay. So after this, we are going to talk about the different systems of our body. How different parts of our body are working, what are their main functions. We don't need a lot of details, you don't need these diagrams. This is just for understanding how the system is working. So one by one, we will talk about different parts, different systems of the body. The first one is the digestive system. When we are eating food, is in a very complex form, and that form exactly cannot be used. So it needs to be broken down into simpler forms so that it can be used. Digestive system does that. It is for breakdown of food into simpler forms. Please keep writing whatever you find relevant. There's going to be no dictation here. So when we eat food, it's going to be broken down to the nutrients are going to come out of it, and those nutrients then can be sent to different parts of the body, and there they can be used. For this breakdown, the body has special enzymes, the digestive enzymes, which are released from different parts of the digestive system, which will lead to breakdown. Now we are going to start from the mouth and see what is happening to food. Okay. So the food first comes in contact with the saliva in the mouth. The saliva produced by salivary glands. And this saliva contains an enzyme amylase which acts on carbohydrates. So when you eat food, the first thing which is going to be broken down is going to be carbohydrates. You don't need names of specific enzymes, just try and remember what is being broken down. So carbohydrates are the first thing to be broken down. Then from the mouth, the food goes to the next part, which is the stomach. There is a tube which connects the mouth from the stomach, and that is called esophagus or food pipe. This is only the connecting tube. There is no digestion taking place here. Nothing is being broken down. It has no enzymes, nothing. So from the mouth to the stomach, when the food comes, in the stomach there is a liquid called gastric juice. Gastric is the word used for stomach. Like we used pulmonary for lungs, cardiac for heart. Stomach ke liye the term is gastric. This has HCl, hydrochloric acid, and an enzyme protease for proteins. So the next thing which is broken down from our food is the protein. Now, because there is acid present in the stomach, when digestion is taking place, it is very important that the ends of the stomach are completely sealed. Because you don't want any acid to flow anywhere other than the stomach. Stomach produces acid, so the stomach is prepared for the acid, but not the other parts of the body. So we have special muscle bands or sphincters whose job is to close the stomach tightly when digestion is taking place. it will seal the ends of the stomach. You understand the idea of acidity? Acidity or acid reflux. What is that? That's basically acid flowing out from the stomach back into your mouth. That can happen if the sphincter is not closed properly. And there can be many situations when the sphincter is not closed properly. Like suppose there is overconsumption of food. Okay, there is overeating. So in that case, जैसे खाना आ रहा है, stomach भरते जा रहा है, but you are not stopping, right? So food, 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 more food, until there's no more space in the stomach. Then it will keep accumulating here, and this band will not be able to close the stomach properly. So if the sphincter does not close properly, the acid can flow out and go back. There can be a reflux, which you understand as acidity. Okay. This is just one of the situations. There can be many more. After the stomach, the food goes to the next part, which is the small intestine. The small intestine produces its own liquid, which is the intestinal juice. This intestinal juice contains enzymes for proteins, peptidase, and sucrase, maltase, lactase for carbohydrates. So intestinal juice has enzymes for proteins and carbohydrates. Now there are two more organs associated with the digestive system. One is your pancreas and the second is liver. Food does not go into these, food will not go into pancreas or liver, but they will produce their juices, they will release their secretions, and they are going to give it to the small intestine. So liver produces bile and pancreas produces pancreatic juice. ये वाला AC थोड़ा सा कम करना है. Both of these secretions are also coming into the small intestine. So ultimately small intestine will have three liquids, three juices: intestinal juice, pancreatic juice, and the third one will be bile. Let's see first what bile does. Bile is supposed to be helping in fat digestion. But one special point you need to remember here is it does not have fat digesting enzymes. No fat digesting enzymes. Bile has other things. Bile has some pigments, bile has some chemicals which are very important for digestion of fats. But fat digesting enzyme, if you think of that specifically, that is not present in bile. After being released from the liver, bile is stored in another location called gallbladder. Gallbladder does not produce anything on its own. Gallbladder's only role is to store bile and then release it into the small intestine. That is why in cases when people get their gallbladder removed also, if there is some problem with the gallbladder, it can be surgically removed. That is not a very major problem in the body. Because this gland, it does not make anything on its own. It's only storing bile. So in that case, they make a direct connection between the liver and the small intestine. The process, of course, becomes less efficient, but it still works because gallbladder does not produce anything of its own. After bile, pancreatic juice has protease enzymes for proteins, lipase enzymes for fats, and amylase for carbohydrates. Now, with the action of all these three, digestion is complete in the small intestine. Everything that needed to be broken down into their more simplified forms, that whole process is complete in the small intestine. Okay. But every part of your food cannot be used. Every part of your food cannot be digested. There will be some things which will still be extra, some things which will remain undigested, some things which now will need to be removed from the body. So we'll see how that happens. So in the small intestine, breakdown of food is complete. Food is complete and we get nutrients on one side and undigested things on the other. So we call this undigested waste, and there is some water. The nutrients will go into the blood. Blood is connected to all parts of the body, so the nutrients in the blood can then go to all the different parts of the body. So from the small intestine, the nutrients are absorbed into the blood. So small intestine has a very rich blood supply. So as nutrients are broken down, they keep going into the blood. What is left, what your body cannot use, what is extra, that goes to the next part of the digestive system, which is large intestine. So the undigested waste and the water which is extra, that goes into the large intestine. Now what the large intestine does is it absorbs the extra water. Water is absorbed, again absorption is taking place, that means it's going into the blood. Okay. So this you need to remember, water absorbed in large intestine, nutrients absorbed in small intestine. Whatever is left, that now has to be removed from the body. This rectum is the last part of the intestine. The term we use to describe the last end part of the large intestine, it is rectum. It opens outside, there is an opening which is anus, and from this your stool or the undigested waste is going to come out. This is the whole process of digestion. If the gallbladder is removed, there is no need for gallbladder's function because it's not producing anything on its own. What you do in that case is gallbladder's job is to store bile. So storage does not happen. As the liver produces it, it goes directly into the small intestine. It does not work to the same level. It is not as efficient, but all the functions are still done without gallbladder. So the people who have their gallbladder removed, they can have a slight problem with digesting fats easily or other things which liver does, but they still can do all the functions normally. Okay. After this, we can go to the next system then. लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन से न्यूट्रिएंट्स पहले ही निकल जाता है लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन में जाने से पहले. स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन में ऑल द न्यूट्रिएंट्स आर गोइंग टू बी अब्सॉर्ब्ड. हाँ, उसमें जो कुछ बचता है वो एक्स्ट्रा है, वो चीजें हैं जो बॉडी यूज नहीं कर सकती है. ठीक है. लाइक यू अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ फाइबर इन फूड. So do you know it said that you must add fiber to your diet? या जिसको बोलते हैं fiber, roughage, right? Salad, fruits, the comparison of atta and maida. The concept is on fiber. Fiber और जो roughage part होता है food का, that is composed mainly of cellulose, which your body cannot digest. We cannot break down cellulose, but a lot of other animals like grass eating animals, they can break it down. So हमारी body के लिए वो extra है. But if it is extra and it is ultimately going to end up in our undigested waste, why do we need it? There are two functions which this fiber will do. One is that it provides bulk to our food. Like if you compare juice and fruit, if you take juice has no fiber. So it is going to be readily absorbed in the body. You'll get an instant peak of energy, but at the same time, you will become hungry very soon because it does not provide that component of fullness. But if you eat a fruit in place of that, it will provide you fullness because of the fiber content which is present. So the person will not be hungry very soon. Along with that, a very important function which is done by this fiber is that it helps in the movement of this food. Movement of food in our digestive system and its final removal from the body is dependent on availability of fiber. The more the fiber, the more body will be there to the food and the easier its movement is going to be. Okay. So that is the significance of fiber. Fiber is the extra thing which is going to be finally removed from the large intestine, but it is very important so that you have a proper digestion process and you don't get hungry very soon. And you don't overeat because of that. Okay. What is the function of pancreas? You've just now studied what is the function of pancreas. It is supposed to be producing pancreatic juice which will help in digestion. जंक फूड का क्या मतलब है बताओ? जो मैदा है, हाँ. वो क्यों नहीं अगर बर्गर पिज्जा अब्सॉर्ब ना हो तो उसका कुछ हार्म नहीं होगा. ओके. सी व्हाट इज द कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ पिज्जा? व्हाट ऑल न्यूट्रिएंट्स डू यू थिंक पिज्जा हैज? What all things pizza has? Pizza has bread. What is bread? कार्बोहाइड्रेट. ठीक है, या मैदा जो आप बोलते हो. अब मैदा और आटा में क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मैदा हैज लेस फाइबर. इट इज रिफाइंड फ्लावर. The more finer you make your grains, the more refined they become, the less fiber they have. ठीक है? So मैदा is carbohydrate only, okay? वो कार्बोहाइड्रेट हमारी बॉडी यूज कर सकती है. इट्स जस्ट दैट द प्रॉब्लम विद मैदा इज बिकॉज ऑफ लेस फाइबर इट बिकम्स अ लिटिल डिफिकल्ट फॉर इट टू मूव इन दिस सिस्टम. ठीक है, अदरवाइज ऐसे उसका कोई नुकसान नहीं है. मैदे का प्रॉब्लम ये है, अगेन लेस फाइबर मींस इजियर अब्जॉर्प्शन, जल्दी यूज हो जाएगा बॉडी में, and slower to move in the digestive tract. So it might get stuck and waste removal might be a problem. The other thing is cheese. Cheese is protein and fat, milk based. Then there are vegetables. Again, वो अपना minerals and vitamins लेकर आएंगे. ठीक है, तो इसमें अनहेल्दी कंपोनेंट्स क्या होते हैं? एक तो लेस फाइबर कंटेंट, दूसरा द cheese which is there that might have a trans fat component. Remember trans fats, right? So ultra processed items usually have trans fat. So trans fats का जो जो नुकसान है वो उसका नुकसान है. And the other problem is there can be a high dosage of salt in this. या अगर उसमें कुछ सॉस यूज हुआ है उसमें शुगर कंटेंट एक्स्ट्रा हो सकता है. So individual components, they are made up of our basic nutrients also, but their proportions might be something which is harmful, right? So वो कार्बोहाइड्रेट ही है तो हम उसे अब्जॉर्ब होने से रोक नहीं पाएंगे. ठीक है, शुगर अगेन रिफाइनिंग का वही प्रोसेस है. जैसे शुगर जो बन रही है ओरिजिनली वो गुड़ गुड़ बनेगा पहले sugar cane se, when you will get that juice, and then when it is going to be heated you will get that jaggery, right? Jaggery also has more fiber. You keep processing it, you remove all the fiber, you get the pure sucrose formulation in that crystals. So again, jaggery and sugar, like a lot of people have this concept ki natural sugars are good. You can't really say they are good, you can say they are better than refined sugar. बट इफ समबडी हैज डायबिटीज जिसकी बॉडी प्रोसेस नहीं कर रही है ग्लूकोज या किसी भी फॉर्म में शुगर, वो एक्स्ट्रा है, तो उसके लिए जैगरी भी उतना ही बैड है, मे बी स्लाइटली लेस बैड, बट स्टिल कोई मेजर डिफरेंस नहीं है. वो भी सुक्रोज है, वो भी सुक्रोज है, बट बिकॉज मोर फाइबर कंटेंट इज देयर इन जैगरी, दैट मीन्स वो थोड़ा स्लो अब्जॉर्ब होगा, तो पीक नहीं होगी बहुत जल्दी उसकी. दैट्स द पॉइंट. हाँ, अगर आप फ्रूट खा रहे हो उसको भी आप बोल सकते हो नेचुरल शुगर है ये, इसमें होती है, फ्रक्टोज होगा उसमें. यूरिन is not related to this system. Okay, somebody has asked a question in that context. इस सिस्टम में इन ऑर्गन्स का यूरिन फॉर्मेशन से कोई लेना देना नहीं. विल टॉक अबाउट किडनीज, देयर विल कम अक्रॉस दिस. Why are there autoimmune diseases? Okay, a slight detour from here. Very briefly I'll tell you about this term. See, immune system जो होता है उसमें एक बहुत वंडरफुल प्रॉपर्टी है, दैट इट कैन डिस्टिंग्विशिंग उसकी अपने सेल्स कौन से हैं और बाहर के सेल्स कौन से. This ability of the immune system to distinguish what is self and what is non-self, this property is called autoimmunity. Sometimes what happens is there can be certain diseases in which you can have this function being lost. A condition where your body cannot distinguish between its own cells and the cells which are coming from outside. And as a result, the body will start attacking its own cells. If that situation is there, it will be called an autoimmune disease. That means autoimmunity is not working. And there can be many such diseases. A lot of these diseases are congenital. People are born with them, or they can develop later on also because of some dysfunction in the immune system. One example I'll give you. There is a disease called rheumatoid arthritis. This is a disease where the immune system is unable to distinguish between its own cells and it starts destroying the joints of the body. ठीक है. Digestion of water, its role in water digestion. Water is again supposed to help in the movement of the whole food through the digestive system, and digestion, say water will finally be absorbed in the body through the large intestine. The next system which we have to talk about is the respiratory system. And respiration is the system where energy is produced. So now we have nutrients in our body available. These nutrients can be used or are going to be used to produce energy. There are two steps in which energy is going to be produced or respiration will happen. One is called cellular respiration, where each and every cell produces its own energy. Do you remember which part of the cell is going to produce energy? Yes, mitochondria. So mitochondria, yes, your powerhouse of the cell, that is performing cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is happening in every cell, and that is what is going to produce energy. The second step is exchange of gases. Gaseous exchange. We'll first see what's happening in the cells, what's happening with cellular respiration. For production of energy, the starting point, the main substrate is glucose. For all organisms, bacteria, fungus, plants, animals, they all use glucose to produce energy. In our body, in our cells, this glucose, in the presence of oxygen, changes to carbon dioxide, water, and energy is released in the process. This is called aerobic respiration. The significance of the word aerobic is because oxygen is involved. If oxygen is involved in a process, it is aerobic. There can be some organisms which can produce energy without oxygen also. Like you can have some bacteria do this. So in their case, there is glucose, ethanol is produced, carbon dioxide, energy. If you have this kind of a respiration or this method of producing energy, it is called anaerobic respiration. Like in some bacteria, yeast, the process which you would have heard as fermentation. Heard about fermentation? Where is it involved? Alcohol making. What else? Baking. Yeah, baking, brewing, and many other food related sectors use fermentation process. So when you come across this word fermentation, you should know this is an anaerobic process. No oxygen goes into this process. And because these organisms don't need oxygen to survive, it actually gives them this advantage to live in areas where oxygen is less or not there. Because their life, their energy making process is not dependent on oxygen. Our cells in our body can also, under special conditions, produce energy without oxygen, what can happen is muscle cells have this special property that if oxygen is not available, then glucose can be broken down into lactic acid and energy, but no use of oxygen. This will happen when there is insufficient oxygen supply. Let me give you an example of how this will work. Heavy exercise, okay. See, one day you get up, you decide, today I'm going to run 10 kilometers. Okay. Your body is very surprised कि ये आज क्या हो गया. Okay. But you are determined that you will run 10 kilometers, so you start running. And because you are running, your muscles have to work. Now your body is also not prepared to provide you with the oxygen which you will need for that strenuous activity in that short duration of time. So oxygen supply हो नहीं पा रहा है, आप रुक नहीं रहे हो, मसल सेल्स क्या करें, बिना ऑक्सीजन के एनर्जी बनानी पड़ेगी. So under this special situation, muscle cells start their respiration anaerobically. तो जितने muscle cells को ऑक्सीजन मिलेगा, they'll perform aerobic respiration, and those which will not be able to receive oxygen, they will do this alternative process of producing energy. This lactic acid then gets stored in the muscles and muscle cramps develop. I'm sure you have observed this, that once you work out after a very long time, you develop a lot of cramps the first day. But if you keep doing this activity repeatedly, right? If you keep running every day, or if you are preparing, or what you say, if you are training for a particular event, then the supply of oxygen will increase. Because now the body knows कि ये तो रोज ही भागता है, इसको देना पड़ेगा oxygen, right? So that capacity to provide oxygen will increase, and the need for this process is going to reduce, and cramps will also reduce over a period of time. So we are performing aerobic respiration, but muscle cells are an exception. If there is an emergency situation, they can also produce energy without oxygen. Okay? Okay. Now in this normal aerobic respiration, there are two gases which are involved. One is oxygen, the other is carbon dioxide. Oxygen is being used in this process, so we need oxygen in our body to come into our body, and carbon dioxide produced in this process needs to be removed from the body. This is the waste product of this reaction. So oxygen अंदर आना चाहिए, carbon dioxide बाहर जाना चाहिए. That is the gaseous exchange which will happen. That is the second step. So we will see how these gases are being exchanged. This is going to happen through the airway system and the two organs, the two lungs. In this particular system, the sequence of different parts is very important. Which part comes first, which comes after that you need to know. So when air is supposed to go into the body, air is going to enter through the nose or the nasal cavity. We are breathing air in through our nose. So we'll start with the nose. And then, can you see there is a common area between the mouth and the nose? Some passage is common. This common passage is the pharynx. This is the next part. After the pharynx, you have the next part, the larynx or the voice box. This is where your vocal cords are present. This is from where we speak. From the larynx now, the main airway tract goes down the neck. This main pipe is called trachea or your windpipe. And this trachea divides into two parts. You have the two lungs and you want air to reach both the lungs. So, trachea divides into two bronchi, or the singular term is bronchus. These bronchi further have to divide. There will be branches so that all the parts of the lungs can be supplied with air. And this is called bronchioles. अब ये सीक्वेंस याद रखना है, ट्रेकिया, ब्रोंकस, bronchioles. Finally ending in air sacs, balloon-like structures called alveoli. Now air has reached the alveoli. From here now, the gaseous exchange will take place. Oxygen will go in, carbon dioxide will come out. And that medium of exchange will be blood. Just like glucose is being carried in the blood or nutrients are being carried in the blood, oxygen, carbon dioxide, they are also going to be moving in the blood. And this is the location for that. Alveoli is surrounded all around it by blood. And let's see what happens there. So alveoli is bringing the air. Air has finally reached alveoli. And around the alveoli, there is blood. It's surrounded by blood, very rich supply of blood. So, from the air, what we need is oxygen. And how oxygen from the air will go into the blood is, it's going to be pulled out by hemoglobin. Remember hemoglobin? Where is it found? Which part of blood? So red blood cells have hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin has a very high affinity for oxygen. It pulls oxygen out, oxygen attaches to hemoglobin, and then in this attached form, it will go to all parts of the body, to each and every cell, so that aerobic respiration can be performed. Attaches to hemoglobin and is carried around the body. So how oxygen travels all around in the body is in an attached form, attached to hemoglobin. Now, as this oxygen is going to each and every cell, Aerobic respiration is taking place in each and every cell, and carbon dioxide is going to be produced. This carbon dioxide, as it is being produced, it will also go into the blood. Cells से ये blood में आ जाएगी, so that through the blood it can be removed. So as this blood is coming from the cells, it is going to contain carbon dioxide dissolved. So blood में carbon dioxide है, which now has to go into the air. So just when oxygen from the alveoli is going into the blood, blood is carrying carbon dioxide, which is going to go into the alveoli. This is the exchange which is taking place. Oxygen alveoli से blood में, carbon dioxide blood से alveoli. So alveoli is the site for gaseous exchange in the body. And once carbon dioxide is into the alveoli, it can take the same path backwards. So you can have carbon dioxide from alveoli to bronchioles, to bronchi, trachea, larynx, pharynx, and finally exhaled out. So this is the completion of your gaseous exchange. To provide the force for these gases to move, you have this big muscle called diaphragm. Below the lungs, you have the diaphragm, and this diaphragm will move up, will move down, and that is going to create the force needed for the gases to move. Oxygen, pulling the oxygen in, inhaling oxygen, and then pushing the carbon dioxide out, exhaling the carbon dioxide. That movement, force for that movement is going to be provided by the diaphragm. This is the process of respiration. If you ask me this question, you know the answer to it, पर मैं भी बता देती हूँ. So the form in which energy is produced in the body is called ATP. So just like you say that money can be in different forms. Okay, money can be in rupee, money can be in dollar, money can be in yen. So energy can also be in different forms. In our body, the energy currency is ATP. It is a molecule called adenosine triphosphate, and this is how your body stores energy. Okay. Gases in our body in gaseous form, we are going to have only in the airway passage. उसके बाद वो डिजॉल्व्ड फॉर्म में ही चले जाती हैं, बट सिर्फ ऑक्सीजन और कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड ही होता है, और हम कुछ भी गैसियस फॉर्म में नहीं यूज करते. नाइट्रोजन कंपाउंड्स के फॉर्म में होगी, नाइट्रोजन प्रोटीन में अटैच्ड होगा, सिर्फ अकेले नाइट्रोजन नहीं होता बॉडी में. Gaseous cycle, gaseous exchange takes place between, yes, these gases. See, जैसे हम air breathe in कर रहे हैं, right? So we are not just taking in oxygen, हम तो पूरी air लेते हैं, right? That is why we need hemoglobin. What is the point of having hemoglobin specifically? अगर सिर्फ oxygen आता तो जैसे carbon dioxide dissolve होके आ रहा है, oxygen would also have simply dissolved and gone into the blood. But that's not the situation. This is a combination of all gases here. So we are going to have to selectively bring out oxygen, and for that you need a special molecule कि hemoglobin इस पूरे air में से सिर्फ oxygen को निकाले, and the rest of the gases they will all go back when carbon dioxide is going back. Again, there can be some things which can be more uh, can have a stronger affinity to hemoglobin than oxygen. जैसे जो smoke का problem है, smoke में there is carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide also in some amount, but carbon monoxide is what is main problematic. अगर हीमोग्लोबिन को ऑक्सीजन मिले और कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड मिले तो इसकी प्रेफरेंस है कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड. It has a stronger affinity for carbon monoxide than oxygen. And that is why there is this problem of smoking in enclosed spaces. Like that, और ये जो एक बहुत reports आती हैं winters में, that there's a family who was burning some wood to keep warm, and the room was a closed room, no window, no ventilation, and by the morning, the whole family died. Why such a thing would happen is, room closed है, that means air is not coming from outside और अंदर की बाहर भी नहीं जा रही है. Wood burn हो रहा है, तो gases निकल रही हैं, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, all of that is going to be released. Now, on continuous burning, the proportion of carbon monoxide in that air will increase. And oxygen will not be able to compete with that because hemoglobin has a greater affinity for carbon monoxide. So जितना hemoglobin होगा, उस पे सब पे carbon monoxide चिपक जाएगा, and there will be no hemoglobin left for oxygen. That means no possibility of producing energy, and that is what is going to lead to death of the person. ठीक है? Does breathing from the nose is different from breathing from the mouth? नहीं. As such कोई खास difference नहीं है in terms of this airway interaction, because you have seen कि एक common passage है ही है. यहाँ से air join हो जाएगी trachea में. ठीक है? So no major problem. Of course, we say that जो hair present है nose में, they can act as a basic filtering mechanism, that you can avoid breathing in some particles, and mouth में वो नहीं हो पाएगा. Why and how smoking affects our respiratory system? So smoking से the problem is not just with the smoke. जो smoke वाला problem है वो तो है ही है, जो smoke अंदर जा रही है, that will damage the parts of the lungs, the tissues. There are some particles, burnt out particles, which will go and get attached to these lungs, their cells. So the capacity of the lung to move, to expand, to exchange gases, that will reduce with smoking. The major complication of smoking comes in the form of the things which you smoke. जो भी उसमें agent है, जैसे nicotine है या जो भी और चीज है, that is going into the blood. It does not stop at the lungs. The bigger problem is all those chemicals which are toxic for the body, they are going from here into the blood. And they can have some very serious complications. Of course, people are smoking because it is a stimulant, right? There's some nice buzz which they are getting. But उसका एक negative context भी है. That is going to have an impact on almost all organs of the body, heart in particular. And that's where the most serious complications come out from in case of smoking. Because it is an addictive material. It is difficult to quit smoking because there is dependency of the cells. And when those cells जिनको एक particular dosage में एक stimulant मिल रहा है, when they don't get it, there is some withdrawal symptoms. So for all these drugs or all the things which are addictive, it is ideally suggested that they should be tapered and not abruptly stopped. You can lower the dosage and then quit. I don't think there is a context in this. Um, if you breathe from the mouth, you get tired. So I don't think you can breathe continuously from the mouth for a very long time. But yeah, there might be some blockage in the nose because of which it is happening. So as such, you might be probably sick because of which you are going to be tired. I'm not sure if there is some direct relationship with this. See, when you are getting exercise, when you are exercising, ठीक है, you're not getting tired because you're breathing from the mouth. You're getting tired because energy is being used. ये भी तो context लगाओ ना अभी साथ में. आप exercise कर रहे हो, आपकी बॉडी में जितना ग्लूकोज है वो यूज होते जा रहा है और बहुत रैपिडली यूज हो रहा है, राइट? So now you are low on glucose because all that glucose was used to produce energy, which you used, the energy also you have used for running. So overall glucose level come, energy come, you will be hungry, you will eat, then you will feel less tired again in some time. Do trachea and esophagus are the same? No. And if that's the case, it will be very dangerous. See, इसके साथ जो ये माउथ का पैसेज है, esophagus आएगा, that's a separate tube, and the trachea is a separate tube. In fact, the trachea is specifically covered when you are swallowing. Because if food enters this passage, the airway passage, that is what you say is choking. You understand choking? So, अगर इसमें कुछ फंस जाए airway passage में, then you will not be able to breathe, and the person can die because of that. So, esophagus is a different tube. Trachea is a different tube. There is only this common passage which is there, pharynx, और pharynx के बाद दोनों tubes अलग-अलग हैं. And when you swallow, when you are actually eating food, the trachea is covered. Okay, there's something called an epiglottis, which is going to cover the trachea and close it so that food does not enter it by mistake also. What happens in sinus? Okay, so you spelled it very incorrectly. Sinus are some spaces in the brain. Sorry, not the brain, it's an improper word. In the head. In the skull, there are some empty spaces which are there. And these whole thing, this whole system, from the nose to the ears to those sinus spaces or cavities, they are all connected. So what can happen is, अगर किसी को respiratory infection है, तो वो ear तक जा सकता है, वो उन sinus spaces में जा सकता है, and if there will be infection in those spaces, then it will cause some headache or some such kind of problems. Is this okay due to affinity of carbon monoxide for hemoglobin that a person becomes addictive to smoking? No, the person becomes addictive to smoking because of what he smokes. वो स्मोक में जो मेन एलिमेंट है निकोटीन का वो एडिक्टिव है, कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड एडिक्टिव नहीं है. Ma'am, many aspirants smoke 2-3 cigarettes per day. On asking, they say that after smoking, they get better concentration while studying. It is a stimulant, it is supposed to make you feel better. So that is there. But anything which you use, you also have to think of the damage of that, right? Because there is always another side to these things, and they do less good than the damage which they are going to do. निकोटीन फ्री सिगरेट आता है, अगर किसी को सिगरेट छोड़ना है तो इस तरह के ऑल्टरनेटिव फॉर्म्स यूज कर सकते हैं. किसी किसी को कूल लगता होगा ना, तो निकोटिन भी नहीं चाहिए, सिर्फ सिगरेट पीने का शौक है, राइट? सो मे बी दे कैन ट्राई दैट. विलन टाइप फीलिंग आते थे. So if trachea is closed during eating, how do we breathe during eating food? See, it's just that one moment. Okay, just that one moment when you swallow. Not the complete eating food. I am eating, the food is in my mouth, trachea is open. पर जब ये swallow करेगा, जब वो उस point को cross होगा, तब बंद होगा. And I think उतना air बंद होने पे आप survive कर सकते हो. Asthma. Asthma reduces the capacity of this airway passage. ये जो पैसेज है ये कॉन्स्ट्रिक्ट हो जाता है, कम जगह होती है इन ट्यूब्स में से ब्रोंकाई ब्रोंक्यूल्स फॉर एयर टू पास. Why is it that do not speak while eating? वो speak while eating का भी यही लॉजिक है. If you are speaking while eating, so speaking के लिए airway passage खुला होना चाहिए, right? Larynx से आवाज आ रही है और eating भी चल रही है तो passage बंद होना चाहिए. So there can be confusion, उसमें choking हो सकती है. जी, lungs में पानी भर जाता है. lungs में there is a covering all over the lungs. Okay, and in that space there is a possibility in some infection, some other problem, that fluid can expand and it can enter the lungs also. चेस्ट ब्लॉकेज का मतलब यही है कि एयरवे पैसेज का कोई भी पार्ट ब्लॉक्ड है अगर इन्फेक्शन की वजह से, अगेन दैट विल हैपन, कफ, कोल्ड, राइट? सो सी व्हेन यू हैव एनी काइंड ऑफ रेस्पिरेटरी इन्फेक्शन, इट इज यूजुअली एग्जामिन्ड कि किस पार्ट में इन्फेक्शन हुआ है. ठीक है, अपर रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक्ट में है या नीचे चेस्ट तक पहुंच गया इन्फेक्शन. सो इफ इट इज इन द चेस्ट, देन द चेस्ट माइट बी ब्लॉक्ड. अगेन ब्लॉकेज का मतलब यही है कि एयरवे पैसेज में चीजें जमा हो गई हैं, ब्रीदिंग कैपेसिटी कम होगी. यूजुअली बार बार प्रॉब्लम होती नहीं लंग्स में पानी भरने की, बिकॉज इट इज अ वेरी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड प्रोसेस. सो for such a person, extra care will have to be taken to manage the respiratory system and to avoid any kind of infection. जैसे कफ, कोल्ड, सर्दी से ज्यादा प्रोटेक्शन करने की जरूरत है. जी हाँ, बलगम जो है या जो भी वो है फ्लैम, वो भी इसी सिस्टम में रिलीज होता है, मोर टुवर्ड्स द अपर रेस्पिरेटरी ट्रैक्ट. ठीक है. हाउ डज नॉन स्मोकर गेट अफेक्टेड बाय स्मोकर्स? सो वुड एनीबडी लाइक टू आंसर दिस? पैसिव स्मोकिंग का क्या लॉजिक है? क्या हो गया? इतना हिलडुल क्यों रहे हो? क्या हुआ? कुछ नहीं हुआ, अभी बहुत समय बचा है. हिलना बंद करें कृपया. हाँ बताओ, नॉन स्मोकर्स. Yeah, you're not smoking, the cigarette is not in your hand, but you are getting that smoke in your body. So same smoke, same impact. Okay, maybe a little less concentrated because you're slightly further away, it's not going directly into your mouth. But again, अगर स्मोकर के ऊपर उसका इम्पैक्ट है 90%, तो 20% पैसिव स्मोकर पे भी है. और अभी एक और कॉन्सेप्ट है टर्शरी स्मोकिंग. What is tertiary smoking is, suppose you go into a hotel and that hotel is a smoker's room, the room which you have, and the linen has not been changed, the bed sheets, the pillows, and somebody was smoking there. तो उन सब चीज़ों पे smoke है, smoke के components हैं, particulate matter, and then you sleep on that, you have access to all those things. You never met the person, you never got the smoke, but this is still tertiary smoking. Why do we feel sometimes chest or heart pain while running? See, heart is providing the blood, जहाँ से ऑक्सीजन मिल रहा है, तो आप भाग रहे हो, हार्ट को भी ज़्यादा काम करना पड़ रहा है to provide you with oxygen and glucose, so there can be some chest pain in that. Okay. Now, in our next class, we will look into the other left organ systems. So we have excretory systems, that is that of kidney, then the heart, and the hormones. After that, the last topic would be genetics and biotechnology. From your NCERT books, in class 7th, there is this chapter on nutrition and respiration which you can go into. And in class 12th, there is this chapter on health. Now this chapter is very advanced. You really don't need to go into all the details here. But if you want to look anything up, if you want to check out any concept in immunity or diseases as such, you'll find it here. Passive smoking, it is said, is more dangerous than active. Because आपको उसका मजा भी नहीं आ रहा ना. That is why it's more dangerous. You don't get the stimulant, you only get the damage. So that's why it's bad. Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.